Big Sills here, and we're so kind. Seth is in such high demand during this time of the year, and we appreciate any minutes that we can get with him. And we had a great conversation last night. And Seth, I want to get right to it here. And I threw this out at you last night, and I threw it out today to people. To me, I think the number one fundamental issue that they have when it comes to Jalen Hurts this season is the lack of RPOs. Wouldn't you agree last year? When you watched that 49er defense in the NFC title game, they were slow, Seth. With the linebacking play at least was because he nullified them and he froze them. This year, when you don't have the RPO or the volume of RPOs that you had last year, those guys are running around like demons, man. And it sped that defense up. It just, to me, they took one of the most important parts of that offense out a year ago. And I think this has something to do with the analytical guys in the coaching staff. And this is a decision that they made in the front office. Do you agree?
Well, hey, listen, you just made a $250+ million investment in a quarterback that, not only do you want to return on it, but you've got to protect it. Now I'm not saying that I agree, with what they've done, but I think it's a confluence of things. I believe that not only does that come into focus, and they've tried to and wanted to make him a better pocket passer, but I also think the knee injury that he sustained early in the year really made a difference in how they began to, call plays. Like, you don't see any RPO anymore in this offense. You don't see Jalen faking to DeAndre, pulling, reading the middle linebacker, pulling it out, or reading the end guy on the line of scrimmage, and pulling it and taking off running. You don't see him, especially in the last 3 or 4 weeks, you don't see him riding DeAndre, reading the middle backer and pulling it out and hitting A.J. Brown on a slant route. That part of the offense is now gone from this offense. And I think it has a lot to do with the adjustments that they've had to make. It's taken away a critical part of what they do that defenses and defensive coordinators now, no longer have to prepare for.
I had a conversation yesterday and a conversation with Frank Reich, and I gotta tell you this, Seth. I asked him about how they do business in the front office, and you tell me, I don't know if it's the coordinators. And follow me here when I say this to you, so that all of these coaches get, like from Alec Hallaby, they get all the information, all the evaluation on 3rd and 7, plus 40, minus 30. What do you do in the red zone here? You get all this intel. And I was told that they're to build the game plan around the information that they get from Howie. And when you're doing that, and I'm like, that's how you guys, he goes, that's how I've got it on text. I'm going to send it. I sent it to you, didn't I? And I'm just asking you, how are you a coordinator or a coach when you have to take other people's intel and put a game plan together? Doesn't it seem it makes sense now, Seth, that why it's so inconsistent at times and you're not seeing the balance and the RPOs? You're protecting a $50 million investment. It's now.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of blown away that that's where the game has evolved to.
Seth, I don't think this is an Eagle thing. I think this is a league thing that you see across the table.
Yeah, I feel like, as I've thought about it, I feel like this is Moneyball's infringement and the analytics infringing upon the game of football the way that it did with baseball. Theo Epstein did a fantastic job of bringing a world championship to the Boston Red Sox, something that didn't happen for something like 104, 106 years. The reason why I know that is because, I'm a Yankees fan as well.
Me too.
But I get the sense that is where we're going. He did a fantastic job in Boston, but he goes to Chicago and it doesn't work out that way. I have friends of mine who were professional baseball players for 15 to 20 plus years that went into coaching, that then turned around and got out of coaching because of how the analytics were taking over the game. And it was never one of those things where they could take the analytics and use it. And don't get me wrong, I'm not one of those people that wants to poo-poo analytics. I think analytics is a fantastic tool when it's used the proper way. Like when I played, every week they gave you the computer printout. Okay. Now they didn't tell you how to read the damn thing, Dan, but they gave you.
But there's the coaches that were there to tell you and explain it to you.
Yeah. But as a player, I created my own analytics. Like when I sat down and I broke down 4 games every single week. And then on Wednesday, when I went over,
interesting,
all the runs formationally, and then Thursday, all the passes formationally, and then, break down, red zone and red zone passing and, goal line, short yards. We would go through I would go through all of that. And as I'm watching film, I would write notes, so I was creating, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was doing it because that's the system that I created for myself, of preparation in order for me to, get an upper hand as to how a team is going to try to attack us, And the thing is, because I created my own analytics, it was up here. So in the game, I could access that information as I needed it. If I had to read it off of a piece of paper, something that somebody else created, it didn't do me a world of good because I couldn't retain it. Anything that I could learn and retain, then I could pull it up as needed. Now, there's a place for analytics in football. I've always felt like, the analytics should aid the coaches and aid the players in doing what they need to get done on the field. But if you're telling me that the analytics is driving the game plan, that the analytics department is telling the coaches, these are the plays that you should run. These are the plays that should be the players that should be active on game day. If that's driving it, then how in the hell, what do you need coaches for? The analytics people ought to just go ahead and create their own offense and their own defense and let them call the plays and let them, deal with the players.
But that's why they have the same systems, Seth. That's why they run every week. You and I hear you on Sundays and me on Mondays. I hear this. Why are they 10 yards off the ball? Why are they 10 yards off the ball? Why are they 10 yards off the ball? That's a philosophical mentality that comes, not any coach in his right mind would go, we need press cover corners. Okay. But because they want to have plug and play guys, because it's easier in free agency. I mean, look at the guys they have on this defense right now, Seth. Every linebacker was cut. That's going to play Sunday. I mean, how do you win a Super Bowl and a championship when you got 3 linebackers that are going to be active Sunday that you cut?
Well, I mean, listen, they've devalued the position. There's no doubt about it. I tweeted about it in game. The minute that Nicholas Morrow missed that tackle on Debo and Debo cut it upfield and went 48 yards, I put a tweet out, to Howie. And I'm like, if you ever thought that there was a need for linebackers in this defense, you just saw it. You just saw it. We just watched it in the most important game of the year. You watched the lack of it not have the ability to help you stop the run, stop the passing game, in the middle of the field, and the inability to tackle. The linebackers should be the best tacklers on the field. And our linebackers are some of the worst. Now, they went and they brought in Darius Leonard. Good move. Don't know what's there, how much is left in the tank, so on and so forth. We'll find out on Sunday. But just his football intellect and from an experiential standpoint, he's an upgrade no matter what it is that he gives or whatever it is that he brings. The linebackers that we have on this roster are we got three special teams linebackers. They've only been special teams players their entire career. This is their first year being starters. And now you've got an all-pro major difference maker that we don't know because of injury whether he's got anything left. And we're wondering why, with $6 million in guaranteed money left, why the Indianapolis Colts let him go and why Dallas, who's also at a need for a linebacker and have more cap space than the Philadelphia Eagles, let him leave without making him an offer that he could not refuse. They shouldn't have never allowed him to get on the plane and come to Philadelphia if they deemed that he could be a difference maker or a helper in that defense. So the fact that they let him get away and let the Eagles get him makes me kind of wonder what's really going on with Darius Leonard.
How about this too, Seth? I was telling people, and they're like, will he start Sunday? And I said, well, when we get Seth on, he'll explain this probably 10 times better than I will. But to me, I tell people when you go from, like, say, the Cowboys to the Eagles, this is like going from a place where you're speaking French to speaking Portuguese. It's terminology, it's technique, it's alignment. And what you have to do, if you're Leonard and you're Desai, you've got to have a language to allow him play more plays because he's got to understand the playbook. Seth, right? Pretty much everybody runs the same shit. It's just called something different. Mm-hmm. And techniques could be a little on a shade. It could be over the guard. People play in the wide 9, the 7s, the 5, the 46, what have you. There's all kinds of different nuances when it comes to terminology. Do you think that they have to not dummy the playbook down, but create a language that they're all on the same page so he could play more plays on Sunday?
Well, fronts and coverages are universal. To your point, there
cover two.
There are little small nuances, but nobody's running something that everybody else doesn't run. The smarter coordinators have a better way to disguise it and a better way to create multiplicity within their scheme. Like no one would ever think that you can play man to man on one side of the field and zone on the other side of the field. But if you have the athletes to do it, it's a very ingenious way of confusing quarterbacks and taking guys away. For Shaq, the question is going to be, is the terminology the same terminology that he's used to? Or is he coming in here having to learn new terminology? And as he's trying to learn that, now he's also got to get prepared for a game. So he's not only got to learn terminology, but now he's got to watch game film on the Dallas Cowboys since he's been here and try to decipher and take, the information and figure out how to marry not only new terminology, but new terminology with, how they're trying to, how they're going to be trying to attack the Cowboys. And then you got the communication barrier. It's just factual. He's playing with 10 new guys that he's never played with before. Who's going to be talking to him? Is he going to be talking to the defensive line and getting those guys lined up when they need to get lined up? Does he know where he's supposed to fit and where the safety is supposed to fit off of him? So you got all of these dynamics that are, coming into the fray here. Listen, he's experienced. He knows the game. It shouldn't be that much of a transition. But when you're playing in a game like this, and this is a must-win game, I don't care what anybody says. It's a must-win game because you lost to San Francisco last week. And I said coming into, this 2-game stretch that they need to win one of these 2 games. Because think about the ramifications. If they lose this game Now they're tied with Dallas, for the division lead. And then you got to go to the tiebreaker because they split head to head to find out common opponents, and that may go down to the last week of the season. Okay.
San Francisco owns the tiebreaker for the conference.
San Francisco moves into the number 1 spot. So the Eagles, by Sunday night, with a loss, can move from the number 1 seed to the number 5 seed potentially, like that. So this is a scenario where the Eagles, this is a must-win game for them from a playoff standpoint, not only to maintain a 1-game lead in the conference, but to also maintain a 1-game lead in the division as a division champ. So it's critical.
Final question for you, Seth. When you look at the way the 2 tackles are playing now, what was it? Kansas City put up 168. Then there was 175. Then there was 148 on Sunday. Are we looking at a bunch of young kids here because Jordan Davis has not been put in that role as a starter? It's a higher volume of reps maybe than he's ever played, and even in college. And now you're looking, as you and I know, about the rookie wall, hits you around 12 or 13. You're starting to see, and get this, I saw that Reuben Frank article. Over the last 3 weeks, they're giving up 6.8 yards a carry. I mean, Seth, are we seeing a little bit of that being worn out and the lack of linebacker play behind them?
It is a combination. I don't know because I'm not sure how they practice. I know that, playing 3 games in 13 days, I'm pretty sure what happened last week was Nick Sirianni probably gave them a pretty easy week. I know that the harder I practiced, the better I practiced, the easier the game was and the better I played in the game. If I had bad practices leading up to the game, I usually played like crap on Sunday. That's just me. That's how I was wired. I needed to have good practices throughout the week in order for me to feel confident, and just get out there and put it on natural and just do what I had conditioned and trained my body to do through practice leading up to the game. But it's a combination of things. It's a combination of, 2 young guys that's still learning how to be professionals in the National Football League that are over the limit of plays that they've both played over the last 3-4 years of their career. So it could be some fatigue that's setting in there. The other thing is the Eagles can't stop the run out of their 4-man front. So you're going to see this back and forth, this chess match that goes on between Sean Desai and other and top-level offensive coordinators, because when they go a 4-man front and you've got, your base in there, you've got 2 linebackers and 4 downs. Well, all they're going to do is they're going to run the ball in that situation. They're going to double both tackles. And if your linebackers don't come downhill and pull those double teams off right now, by the time they react to wherever the ball is going, what you're going to wind up having is those defensive tackles are in the linebackers' laps while they're standing looking in the backfield to figure out where the ball is, instead of seeing the double team right now and coming downhill and pulling the double team off so that the tackle can maintain his gap and then you can get to your gap with your outside arm free. They're getting the tackles are being pushed off the ball. So then what do they have to do? They have to go to the 5-man front. And when they go to the 5-man front, that's normally their remedy to slowing down or stopping the run. But 2 things happen against San Francisco. You had the back and forth every time they go to the 5-man front. That means that you're one guy light on the back end. So now Kyle Shanahan is like, okay, if you're going to go 5, we're just going to throw the ball against your 5-man front because you're one guy light on the back end. Then they tried their luck at running the football against the 5-man front and began to have success with that. Now the defensive coordinator's hands are tied and the players are confused as hell because they know that normally they can stop the run in the 5-man front, but they can't because you got you got both of the tackles in the 5-man. It looked to me like they were in a tight 3, which meant that now they were running the ball off the outside shoulder of the guard on the inside shoulder of the tackle. And the linebackers weren't reading properly. Or if you had a safety in the box, they weren't reading properly. And when you're in a 5-man, it's a one hole gap for the middle linebacker. Okay? Because most of the time you're going to get the nose shaded one way or the other, and you're going to get both guys, in a 3 technique. So the A and the B gaps are taken care of. Wherever the nose is shaded to, the middle linebacker that's left, he's got that gap, and he's flow either way. There's nobody to block him unless they're pulling people and they block down with the tackle. Or they're trying to get on the edge and they go 12 personnel with 2 tight ends in the game, and they block down and they seal him inside. But they were just running plays off the edges. And I'm like, just put your tackles in a true 3 technique, both of them, and now you force them to run the ball back inside. But they were getting on the edges as the game went on.
Absolutely. Seth, I have a billion more questions, and I so value your time, and I thank you so much for coming aboard. We'll do it again, man. I'm so thankful you gave us that insight here, man. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in Dallas. Thank you so much, Seth.
You got it, man. Listen, I'm a little bit worried, and I'm a little bit scared, with this information, that the analytics guys are.
Hey, did I text that to you?
I don't know.
I'm going to text it to you.
I'm a little scared, because if those guys are the ones that are putting together the game plan for all intents and purposes, that's a problem. Because how can you find any continuity as a OC or a head coach who's more offensive oriented as to what you want to do when you're being directed by, the analytics department on what to do? The analytics should be a resource to the coaches to put together the game plan. But if you're being told by the analytics people who've never worn a jock before, never played a down of football before, that this is what the numbers are saying you should run, that's a problem, man. That's a problem. And if that's the case, I can understand why Doug Peterson said, "Peace, I'm out of here." I can understand why.
Seth, I'm going to leave it there. Hey, I'm going to leave it there. Listen, I love you, man. Thank you so much for doing this.
You got it, man. Anytime.
All right, man. Seth Joyner. Don't forget to join him on Sundays for our post-game show, Philadelphia Eagles, each and every single Sunday following Eagle games. We so appreciate it. Xander, Big Joe, we thank you. All of you, 2 to 6 tomorrow, Eastern time, and we shall see you on the flip side.